Hey, thanks for checking out our channel. My name is Joe. This is EMP Cycle Works. This is my shop. Today we got a fun little job. We're going to be replacing the internals of these 2007 Harley Davidson Roadking forks. The product we're using today is the Racetech cartridge emulator system. Really good stuff. This kit comes with the emulators, which are these guys, springs, and you can set up to 2 inches lower. And we're kind of building a Cholo bike here, so we're going to lower it 2 inches. And I'm going to show you how I do the suspension here. So let's get to it. Alright, first step is to drain the fluid out. There's a bolt that holds the dampening rod at the bottom, and in this case it is a 6mm bolt. I like to take it out before I take the spring out, so the whole assembly is under spring tension, and it'll let me spin this out of here without the whole assembly spinning and not being able to get the nut out with a bolt. So the fastest way I found to do is take your impact driver and make sure you're good and square on the bolt. And it will come out. And there's a copper crush washer that is also with it. So I'm going to make sure you have that. And make sure you have a pan ready and dump the oil in. So if you articulate it up and down, you can see the oil coming out of it. The next step would be to take the top cap off, and then we need to take this cap, and it requires a special tool. Jim's USA makes a tool that fits right on this and allows you to put a 1/2-inch drive, either socket, or in my case I'm just going to use my impact gun. Now this is under a lot of spring tension, so you got to really be careful. Probably not the safest way to do it. Take out your spring. And then your dampening rod will come out. So we use a flathead screwdriver to get the spring clip out of here. And there's openings in it to let you pry it out. And once this is off, we can separate the two halves by just sliding them apart. So, and with all luck, it'll come out easily like that. And then we have the bottom dampening rod part. I don't know the name of it. Should learn that though. And now we have our bushings, our washer, and our seal that have to be removed. Alright. Now the next step would be to wash these parts here, make sure they're nice and clean. We want to inspect the inner fork tube for any type of pitting or scratches or anything like that, because that would cause a leak later on. I'm going to clean these parts up, and then we'll start assembling the Racetech kit. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is make sure our emulator works properly. In this kit, this style of dampening rod, we don't need any adapters. Some of them you will, and it's going to work like this. So that checks out. And the next thing we need to do is add, if we drill 2 holes, then it'll give us our six openings, or 6 holes that we need. They have to be at least 5/16, and the first one is, so I'm going to set this up in the drill press and we're going to drill it out. Alright, I've set it up in my drill press here, so I have a centering drill bit so I can get a nice little center before I hit it with the drill bit, the actual 5/16 drill. Alright, that's one set of holes. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and hit it somewhere in the middle. I'm going to take my trusty chamfering tool and chamfer the holes. So now to clean it up and start assembly. Here we are with our emulator. Per our spec sheet, or DVS custom setup sheet, we need to swap this out for the yellow spring, and we need to have 3 turns of preload. It has 3 bleed holes, and there are 3 on this. So I'm going to break the lock nut loose. Then remove the screw here. And just hand tighten this nut. So that's 0, so I need to turn it 3 times. Half, 1, half, 2, half, 3. We'll thread our lock nut back on. Lock it down. That is our emulator setup. Alright, I'm going to begin the reassembly here. And in order to do 2-inch lowering like we need, we use their Racetech's 1-inch lowering spring plus the stock top-out spring, which will make our dampening, or we'll lower the bike 2 inches now. So I'm also going to install the Racetech emulator in the top here. And as you can see, it's lowered quite a bit, so I'm going to use So I'll stick the spring in with the spacer here, so I'll be able to get the bolt in the dampening rod here. So first thing I'm going to do is lube up the bushing and slide that over the top. That way I can don't forget the cap. Install it all together like that. Now I'll take my 6mm Allen. Any luck? Yeah, it started. Okay, cool. Racetech gun. Alright, 2 inches might be a little too much here. So I'm going to take my bushing, lube it up, take my spacer, lube it up. And I'm always going to replace these fork seals anytime I'm in here, so I'm going to put some lube on it, slide it over the top, my installation tool. Knock it in so the groove for the spring clip can go on. So I'm actually going to put this together without the springs. So I can see if 2 inches is going to be too much. Alright, so I don't have the springs installed. Same process for the other side, so I'm going to get that started and then we're going to go from there. Alright, I got the springs out, I got the lowering kit in both of these. I don't have the main springs in. I want to check to make sure that at full compression that my fender isn't going to hit, or the fender isn't going to hit here or in the back, and as you can see, that's full compression. That's where the fork lowers are hitting the lower triple. So around the side, it's not hitting the fender or anything. So with the fork emulators in there, the monotube emulators, and the right fork oil and the right preload, we shouldn't have any issues with this thing bottoming out. Clearance checked. We're good to move on to the rest of the suspension components here. We got to install the springs and then set up the preload spacers to get the right preload on this suspension here. All right, now we got to figure out the preload for these forks here. So we have your Racetech spring that came with the kit here. And this is the spacer that we're going to use to cut. We're going to cut this to the right length. Looks like we need, on our custom setup sheet here, it says we need 28 millimeters of spring preload. So first thing is to measure with the fork fully extended how close the spring is right now. So we're at 40.21. 40.21 is our resting rate. So then we need to account for the cap here. And the cap looks like we are at 29 millimeters. So basically 11 millimeters. So we need to add our 11 millimeters is the difference. So if this is bottoming out, there'd be 11 millimeters of space. So we need to add that 11 millimeters to our 28 millimeter, and that gives us spacer 39 millimeters. So I'm going to use my lathe and cut these, and then I'll be back. So the one thing I forgot were the there's little washers that go on the other end of these spacers after you cut them. So my measurement wasn't 39 millimeters. Two of these together is 4.5. So my overall measurement for my spacer that I cut is 34.5. So I got the spring installed. I'm going to install one of my washers, then the spacer, and then another washer. I'm going to put my cap on, and the distance from here to here should be 28 millimeters, and that'll give me the preload that I'm looking for. And I got 27.92, so we're right in the ballpark. Pretty nice. So next thing is fill it up with fork fluid, and I need 150 millimeters. Alright, so this is my tool that I have just for this. It's graduated on here in millimeters, and it locks down, and set this on there, and then any fluid that's above this line will get vacuumed out. In this case, I'm going to use a vacuum bleeder, an Ewick vacuum bleeder. This tool actually came with a plunger, like a big syringe, but it's long since broken. So this is how I do it. I'm going to fill this up until roughly I get to kind of where I think I need to be. Make sure I articulate it to bleed out the air that's in there. Okay, I should be getting close there. So I'm articulating it, and when I look down, I don't want to see any bubbles. I'm still getting some bubbles, so bubbles are going to displace the fluid. Air is compressible, where fluid is not. So any air in the system will affect our, the ability for the shock to do what it needs to do. Looks pretty good. And we got just a little bit on our tip of our tool, so we're almost where we need to be. So it's probably going to get loud. I'll probably have to mute this mute sound, but so the fluid comes through the tip, and boom, we got 150 millimeters. Two ways to go about getting the cap on with this amount of preload. We have the easy way and we have the hard way. So I think it'll be funny if I try it the hard way first. So I'm going to try that. There's our spring. And we have our washer, spacer, and our other spring. Now, the threads on this start right away, but the threads in here are down a decent amount, so it takes a lot of force to force this down and then get it started. Let's see if I ate my Wheaties this morning. Nice. A lot easier than I thought. just sit my impact, lock her down. You don't have to go crazy, just touch it. What you don't want to do is start it with your impact gun. If you damage the threads on either the tube or the cap, you're going to be needing to replace them. So that's how you rebuild a Harley fork, lowering it with the Racetech lowering kit and gold valve emulators. So if you like the video, go ahead and leave a comment, hit the like button, and subscribe. Help me out, help the channel out, and have a good day.